everybody, all you Awana kids. It's Mrs. Gerber here, and today we are going to talk about heaven. And I'm excited to share with you what I've learned from the Bible. And maybe for some of you older kids, if you would like to pull out a Bible and open it to Revelation, the last book of the New Testament. And chapter 21 is where we're going to start today. We're going to be reading chapter 21 and chapter 22, bits and pieces, so we can learn a little bit about heaven. Now, Revelation is a really cool book. It was written by a man named John when he was a very old man. And he was actually on an island because he was telling so many people about Jesus that the people in charge made him go to this island so he couldn't tell people about Jesus anymore. But God took care of that. He appeared to John, I don't know if he was asleep or what, but he had a vision. And God talked to him in the vision and said, I want you to write down everything I show you. And what he was shown was some things about heaven. And so he wrote it all down in the book of Revelation. We're not going to read the whole book of Revelation or even the whole chapters of 21 and 22, but I'd encourage you someday to go home and read it, or ask your moms or dads to read it to you because it's very exciting. Now, I'm hopeful and I'm praying that you'll want to go to heaven. If you have not yet asked Jesus to come live in your heart to take away your sin problem, then maybe what I shared today about heaven will help you think, maybe I do want to do that, because if we ask Jesus in our heart, then he'll take away our sin and then we can be with him in heaven. So, we're going to talk today about that. And now heaven, of course, is made up of 6 letters. I know you guys know that. It's H-E-A-V-E-N. And we're going to talk about heaven with those letters. So we're going to start with an H, okay? And the first thing that I'm going to share with you is that heaven is God's home. And it is a home of happiness. It makes me cry a little bit to think about it. And it's a healthy home. And this is a place where God lives, and he wants you to come live with him there. And I'm going to read a verse, 21, verse 4. So Revelation chapter 21, verse 4 says, God in heaven will wipe away every tear from our eyes. And there won't be any death there, and there won't be any mourning, that's sadness, and no crying, and no pain. So heaven is God's home, and he wants it to be our home when we no longer live on this earth. And it's a healthy place, and it's a happy place. Okay? Number 2, an E. For an E, I want to talk about excitement, because heaven is going to be an exciting place, boys and girls. There's so many verses, but I want to share, let's see. I want to share Revelation chapter 22, verse 2. So you can turn there if you have a Bible, and it says that in heaven, through the middle of the street, there is God's, okay. Let me start again at the beginning of chapter 22. Then the angel showed John the river of the water of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb through the middle of the street of the city. And on either side of the river that was the tree of life. And this is kind of exciting to me because in heaven there's going to be rivers and there's going to be trees just like we have here. But this particular tree is a fruit tree, but it doesn't have just one kind of fruit. It has a different kind of fruit every month. So you can have one kind of fruit in January, and the next kind of fruit in February, the next kind of fruit in March, all through the month, all through the year. And so that's just kind of one of the small things about how heaven is different than earth, okay? If I have an apple tree in my yard, it's always apples. But in heaven, you can go out and one day it'll be one kind of fruit, one day it will be the next, and they'll always be ripe, which is another cool thing about heaven. Okay, a lot more exciting things about heaven. There's angels there, there's a throne there, there's mountains there. We get a chance to help God rule there. So there's an awful lot of excitement there. Another letter in the word heaven is A. And for A, I'm going to use the word acceptance. Okay, now acceptance means you belong there. You're wanted there. And there is a cool verse in Revelation chapter 22, verse 4 that says, for all the people that are in heaven, God's name will be on our foreheads. And what that means is we belong to God, and that He wants us there. Sometimes we don't feel wanted. Sometimes we thought we had a good friend, and maybe they decide they don't want to be our friend the next day. God always wants us, and we belong in heaven. Okay, that's our A. And then the V. For V, I use two words. I have the word vast. You might not know that word. And the word vibrant. You might not know that word. Basically, what vast and vibrant means is big and bright. Okay? In heaven, it's going to feel really big and it's going to be really bright. I want you to know, well, let's read a verse in 21, verse 2. And it says here, okay, that there is going to be one city in heaven that we're told about. Maybe there's more, but the one we've told about is called the New Jerusalem, okay? Now, this city is going to be bright, okay? And it's going to come down from heaven down toward the new earth, okay? And this city is going to be filled with jewels and gold, and God's throne is going to be there. And of course, God is going to be there. And God is so bright, no longer do we need a sun in heaven, because God's glory is going to be so bright, it's going to light up the whole place. There's going to be no night in heaven also, because it's just always going to be bright. Maybe it'll get dim, I don't know, but we know that there will be no actual night in heaven. Okay, so, and then I wanted to tell you a little bit about the city of God, the New Jerusalem, in terms of its bigness, okay? So, the Bible tells us, and I should read this to you, how big this city is. There's going to be probably all kinds of countryside in heaven as well, but in terms of the city where God's throne is, we know the dimensions. We know how big it's going to be, which is very cool. In Revelation chapter 21, verse 15, an angel was measuring heaven with a golden measuring rod. And it says that the city is a cube, which means it has the same length as width as height. I'm thinking of Kleenex box like this is like a cube. Okay, it's as high and wide and long as each other. So this city that comes down from heaven, called the City of God or the New Jerusalem, is like a cube. And each side is, let's read this here. Each side is 12,000 stadia, okay? And a stadia is 1,500 miles, or 12,000 stadias is 1,500 miles, which is half as big as our country, Okay, so the city is going to be half as big as our country long, half as big as our city wide, and half as long as our city high. And I want to tell you how high that is. It is going to be 273 Mount Everests high and wide and long. Okay, so this is a huge city, plenty of room for everybody that has Jesus in their heart. So that's the vastness of heaven and the vibrance, the brightness of heaven. Okay, now we're on the second E, and the second E has to do with everlasting. Okay, everlasting means it never ends. If you go to heaven to be with Jesus, you will live there forever. You will never die, and it will be only more wonderful every day that you're there as you get to know God and be with His people. There is a verse in Revelation chapter 22, verse 5 that says, the Lord God will be our God, and we will reign with Him forever and ever, which means we get to help Him rule in heaven. We get to be His servants in heaven. Okay, and then our last letter is an N, and I'm just using the word new, okay? In heaven, everything is new. When you get a new, like for you girls, sometimes at Easter time, you might get a new Easter dress, right? It's very fun to get something new. Maybe some of you boys might get a new Lego set for your birthday, which is very exciting. I know a lot of you guys love Legos more than you love sometimes lunch. So I think it's exciting to think about how in heaven everything is new. And verse 21, chapter 21, verse 5 says, behold, I am making everything new. And so when you think of that, in heaven, things don't die. Like you don't have dead branches all around, and you're not going to die, and your friends aren't going to die, because you are in heaven, and you have a new body, and you are going to live with God forever, and everything will continually be new. So, boys and girls, that's just a little bit about what the Bible has to say about heaven. There's a lot more in heaven, or a lot more in the Bible. Some in Isaiah talks about how there's animals there, lions and lambs lie down together. The Bible talks a lot about heaven in different areas. So I'm hopeful that she'll be excited to learn more about it. I know I am. And you guys have a nice rest of your Awana night. We'll see you later.